In a world where limits were imposed and dreams were forgotten, there was a man willing to defy everything. He was not born in marble palaces, nor was he educated in the best schools in the world. He was born in a place where tomorrow seemed distant and opportunities were almost non-existent. But inside him, something burned, something no one could extinguish. It was the flame of a true visionary. Dhirubhai Ambani. He didn't just dream big, he made the impossible happen. And what seemed like a distant dream became an unbeatable reality. But the true power of his journey lies not in the riches he accumulated, nor in the empire he built. It's about having the courage to look at the horizon and say, I'm going further. Now that you've seen the beginning of this epic journey, it's your turn to be a part of it. If this story of courage and overcoming touched you, don't let it stop here. Like, comment, and share with everyone who needs to see that the impossible is just the next challenge to be conquered. Because when we believe, we turn dreams into reality, and together, we can inspire more people to follow their own extraordinary paths. The impact of Dhirubhai Ambani's journey goes far beyond the confines of his companies and the billions he has amassed. His career has become an inexhaustible source of inspiration for entrepreneurs around the world, demonstrating that with vision, courage, and determination, it is possible to make any dream a reality, no matter how unlikely it may seem. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He did not have access to great resources or elite education. His life began like that of many others, marked by struggle and scarcity. But what really set him apart was his ability to see beyond limitations. He didn't see a world full of barriers. He saw a field of opportunities waiting to be explored. This is the real lesson Dhirubhai left for all of us. It doesn't matter where you come from, but where you are willing to go. He taught us that to achieve success, we must not fear failure, because every mistake is just a step toward growth. He faced enormous adversity, but he never let it shake him. The betrayal of his friends, the distrust of his rivals, the corrupt system that tried to overthrow him, none of it could stop him. Instead, he used each obstacle as fuel for his journey, and that's how he became an icon of global entrepreneurship. His story is not about wealth, but about willpower and the ability to turn adversity into something positive. He teaches us that success is not linear, that you have to dare to dream big, and that if you want to change the world, you must act boldly, without waiting for the perfect moment. For entrepreneurs, Dhirubhai is more than an example. He is a symbol that there are no limits for those who have the courage to fight for what they believe in. His journey shows that entrepreneurship is a mindset, not a status. What matters is not what you have, but what you are able to do with what you have. He was not just a businessman. He was an archetype of the true entrepreneurial spirit. Create something from nothing, overcome adversity, and make the impossible seem simple. And most of all, he reminded us that when you have vision and perseverance, there are no limits to what you can achieve. Dhirubhai Ambani's career is a true rags to riches story, a journey that reflects the struggle, perseverance, and vision of a man who, against all odds, transformed his destiny and that of India. He was born in 1932 in a remote village in the Indian state of Gujarat, where living conditions were poor and opportunities scarce. His family had no wealth, and from an early age, Dhirubhai knew what hardship was. But he had something no one could take away from him, a clear vision of a different future, and the courage to pursue that dream. At 16, Dhirubhai did the unthinkable. He left his village and went to Yemen, where he worked as a gas station attendant. There, observing the world around him, he learned from people and situations, gaining a deep understanding of how business worked. This time in Yemen was crucial to his development. He understood the importance of hard work, perseverance, and especially strategic vision. Back in India, he began his entrepreneurial journey selling textiles, but he didn't want to be just another trader. He had a much bigger vision. Instead of simply buying and selling, he wanted to control the entire value chain, from the production of raw materials to the sale of the final product. In 1966, he founded Reliance Industries, a company that would begin with a small yarn and textile business, but would soon expand into oil refineries, telecommunications, and other innovative sectors. Despite political difficulties and financial challenges, Dhirubhai did not back down. He was bold, relying on his ability to identify opportunities where others saw only obstacles. His approach was unique. While other entrepreneurs focused on a single sector, he diversified, investing in different industries, always with the goal of building an integrated network of mutually supportive companies. Dhirubhai's breakthrough came when he decided to take Reliance public on the Mumbai Stock Exchange in 1977. This bold and risky move not only ensured the company had access to capital, but also allowed thousands of ordinary Indians to access the stock market, becoming co-owners of one of the country's largest companies. Dhirubhai, therefore, didn't just build an empire, he transformed the way business was done in India, breaking with rigid traditions and creating a new class of investors. He was a pioneer in many ways, being one of the first people to explore the possibilities of a publicly traded company, something that previously seemed out of reach for most. And so, with tireless work, strategic vision, and the ability to never give up, Dhirubhai Ambani rose from a poor boy in a forgotten village to the leader of a billion-dollar empire, founding one of the world's most powerful conglomerates. His story is a testament to the fact that willpower and vision can transform adversity into a journey of success. The role of his father, Dhirubhai Ambani, in shaping Dhirubhai was profound and transformative. Dhirubhai Ambani was a simple man, a dedicated teacher in Korwad, a small village in the state of Gujarat, where resources were limited and life was marked by daily struggle. But for Dhirubhai, his father was not just an authority figure or an academic role model. He was a mentor who would teach him the fundamental principles of life and business. Without ever needing luxury or wealth, education as a priority, Dhirubhai's father, Dhirubhai, saw education as the only possible ladder to advancement. As a teacher, he emphasized the importance of knowledge and intellectual discipline. Even in difficult circumstances, Dhirubhai's home was always a place where education was seen as the key to any change. He undoubtedly learned from his father the value of wisdom. Although access to education was limited, Dhirubhai always encouraged study and the pursuit of learning, demonstrating that knowledge was a treasure no one could take away. This environment of constant education and reflection laid the foundation for the strategic thinking that Dhirubhai would later develop. It wasn't just the formal education his father provided him, but also the example that knowledge could be the key to a better life. Dhirubhai taught him the importance of intellectual curiosity, of never settling for easy answers, and of questioning the world around him. Work values and ethics. Dhirubhai not only imparted academic lessons, but also instilled core values such as hard work, discipline, and ethics. He worked diligently as a teacher, but he also taught Dhirubhai that success doesn't come from luck, but from constant dedication. Through his father's example, Dhirubhai learned that hard work is the foundation of any achievement. He saw in his father that success is built through daily effort, and that a man's worth lies not in what he has, but in what he does and the impact he has on the lives of others. Dhirubhai's father also instilled in him the principle that there are no shortcuts to success. Every small victory was the result of constant effort. For Dhirubhai, honesty, commitment, and discipline were not just personal values, but fundamental principles that shape reputation and the ability to succeed in life. The example of silent leadership. Although Dhirubhai's father was a simple man, his quiet leadership was one of the most powerful influences on the young man's life. Dhirubhai Ambani was not an extroverted leader, but his leadership style was inspiring in its simplicity. He led by example, and Dhirubhai learned from an early age that it wasn't necessary to be the tallest or the richest to be a leader. What mattered was integrity and the ability to lead by example. The love of reading and continuous learning. Dhirubhai's father also fostered his love of books, even in a humble village like Korwad. He made a point of sharing books and teachings from different cultures and traditions. This intellectual curiosity, instilled by his father, was fundamental to Dhirubhai's global vision and desire to venture beyond local borders. Seeing his father's dedication to learning and the transmission of knowledge, Dhirubhai developed the belief that knowledge should never be an obstacle, but always a powerful tool for success. Support in difficulties. In difficult times, such as the family's financial crises, Dhirubhai's father was always there to provide emotional and strategic support. Hirachan taught him that resilience was one of the most valuable qualities any human being can possess, even when the odds were against them. He always encouraged Dhirubhai to keep going, reminding him that hardship is just a chapter, not the end of the story. At the age of 16, Dhirubhai Ambani made a bold decision, a decision that would change the course of his life. Born into a humble family in Korwad, Gujarat, Dhirubhai's reality was marked by poverty and a lack of opportunities. India in the 1940s and 1950s was mired in economic hardship, still struggling to recover after independence, and with a rigid caste system that limited the possibilities of many. While opportunities for advancement were scarce in his homeland, Dhirubhai felt a growing yearning for something greater, something that would lift him from the limitations imposed by his environment. Even at a young age, Dhirubhai already possessed a visionary mindset. He knew that to change his destiny, he would need to look beyond the narrow horizons of his village. His ambition wasn't limited to survival, but to learning about business and understanding the commercial world on a deeper level. And this is what led him to make one of the boldest decisions of his life. He left for Yemen, a country in the Middle East, to work at a gas station. Why Yemen? The decision to go to Yemen was not random. At the time, Yemen represented a thriving commercial hub. Despite being a country with difficult conditions and political isolation, trade in the region was vibrant, especially due to the movement of goods and the presence of Arab traders. Dhirubhai knew that to truly understand the business world, he needed to be at the heart of it, in contact with people from different cultures and ways of doing business. He wanted to learn what no business book could teach: how to deal directly with people, understand market needs, and learn the tactics of day-to-day negotiation. The experience that changed your perspective, arriving in Yemen, was a culture shock. Dhirubhai encountered a world completely different from the one he knew in Korwad, and, more importantly, he had to learn to adapt quickly. Working at a gas station wasn't glamorous, but it was a lesson in life. He wasn't there just to make money, but to learn the intricacies of the trade, which would later shape him into a globally minded businessman. During his time in Yemen, Dhirubhai had a clear understanding of the importance of building strong business relationships. He didn't limit himself to just working as a gas station attendant. He talked to drivers, observed the business going on around him, and sought to understand trade flows, how goods were bought and sold, and the needs and desires of local consumers. These seemingly simple lessons would later prove fundamental to his ability to negotiate and strategically expand his business. Furthermore, Dhirubhai learned one of life's most valuable lessons: the importance of dealing with different types of people and cultures, something that would become a fundamental differentiator in his career. In Yemen, he saw firsthand how transnational trade worked, how fluid trade borders were, and how a broad view of the global market could be more powerful than a small local business. The impact of this experience on your business life. When Dhirubhai returned to India, at the age of 20, he brought with him not only the experience of hard work and interaction with different cultures, but also a global mindset and the understanding that success required boldness and innovation. His trip to Yemen not only gave him a broader perspective on international trade, but also gave him the confidence to take risks and think outside the box. Qualities he would bring with him when he founded Reliance Industries. This experience also fueled Dhirubhai's belief that the greatest entrepreneurs are not those who have everything under their belt from the start, but those who have the courage to seek knowledge in unlikely places, learn from the world, and use the experience gained to build something great. Dhirubhai Ambani's return to India and the beginning of his entrepreneurial journey. After spending about 4 years in Yemen, working at a gas station and absorbing valuable lessons about commerce and business, Dhirubhai Ambani returned to India. In 1958, at the age of 26, he did not return as a wealthy man, but as a young man with big ideas and an open mind, ready to apply his acquired knowledge to a land of enormous untapped potential. The impact of the Yemen experience, his time in Yemen, had profoundly shaped Dhirubhai's mindset. He was no longer the young man from Korwad, limited by circumstances and scarcity. He now possessed a global vision, an expansive mindset, and the conviction that business was not just about selling products, but about understanding markets, creating solutions, and building relationships. When he returned to India, he brought more than just work experience, he brought the entrepreneurial spirit. He had absorbed from years of interacting with different cultures and markets. He understood the value of connecting with audiences, anticipating their needs, and finding creative ways to solve problems. The modest beginning and the first entrepreneurial attempt, Dhirubhai returned to Mumbai, then known as Bombay, to begin his entrepreneurial journey. Although he was full of ideas and convictions, he began modestly. With a small sum of money borrowed from family and friends, he began working in the textile trade, selling other manufacturers' clothing. However, Dhirubhai wasn't limited to just selling products. He wanted to understand the entire value chain, create a more efficient business system, and do business differently. He excelled when he realized that the Indian textile market was in a transitional phase, and there was a growing demand for more modern, higher quality products. He then formed his first company, Reliance Commercial Corporation, in the early 1960s, importing yarns and fabrics and selling them to traders and small vendors in Mumbai. The innovation and expansion mindset from the beginning. Dhirubhai demonstrated his visionary and innovative mindset. He knew that to succeed, he would need to control not only the sale of products, but the entire production chain. It wasn't enough to simply import and resell. He wanted to produce, control, and expand. The first major turning point came when he partnered with local suppliers to gain access to high-quality fabrics and yarns. Instead of relying solely on imports, he began building a small distribution network, establishing strong relationships with his customers and other traders, which provided him with a foundation of trust and stability in the early years of his entrepreneurial journey. These humble beginnings weren't just about doing business efficiently, but also about understanding that building an empire requires patience and consistency. At the same time, he moved away from traditional practices, creating a new, more dynamic, flexible, and competitive business model. The founding of Reliance Industries after a few years, Dhirubhai had the vision to expand his business beyond selling fabrics. He wanted to go further, and that's when the idea of creating his own fabric factory came to him. In 1966, he founded Reliance Industries, a fundamental step in the birth of the empire that would later become one of the largest companies in the world. This decision to establish his own production was Dhirubhai's first step toward total control over his supply chain, something few entrepreneurs were willing to do at the time. He didn't want to rely on middlemen and suppliers. He wanted to control the production process from start to finish. Dhirubhai's business philosophy in the early years of his entrepreneurial journey. Dhirubhai laid the foundation for the philosophy that would become his trademark: vision, risk, and control. He had a unique ability to spot opportunities where others saw only obstacles, as when he realized that the Indian market lacked quality products and the textile industry was not keeping up with international trends. He also possessed remarkable strategic acumen, making bold decisions, such as investing in technology and building his own infrastructure, when other entrepreneurs in India were hesitant to make such investments. But above all, Dhirubhai was a man who believed in the power of people. He treated his employees with respect and loyalty, and this was crucial to building an empire. He knew that the true success of any company comes from its people, and his ability to motivate and retain top talent helped him grow Reliance exponentially. When Dhirubhai Ambani began his entrepreneurial journey, he wasn't just facing the difficulty of starting from scratch. He was also dealing with a challenging economic and social landscape. India in the 1960s was a young country, fresh from British colonialism, with a rigid business system and many restrictions. But Dhirubhai wasn't just trying to start an ordinary business. He had a grand vision, a mission that went far beyond simply making money. He wanted to transform the Indian market and industry. One restricted economic system. At the time Dhirubhai started, India was under a planned economy. where the government held strong sway over industrial sectors. The industrial licensing system severely limited the number of companies that could be founded and the growth capacity of existing businesses. For a young entrepreneur with big ambitions, this posed a significant obstacle. But instead of giving up, Dhirubhai used this limitation to his advantage. He knew that to grow, he needed to go beyond the traditional system and innovate. Dhirubhai was one of the first to understand that to overcome the barriers of a bureaucratic and controlled system, he would need strategic innovation, and that's what he did by diversifying his business. 2. Lack of initial capital. Like many early-stage entrepreneurs, Dhirubhai also faced difficulties accessing capital. Coming from a humble background and lacking significant connections or resources, he had to start small and rely on the goodwill of family and friends to finance his initial venture. In the early years, he lacked the financial muscle to compete with the industry giants, requiring creativity and persistence to keep going. But once again, he turned this limitation into an opportunity. Instead of relying on traditional banks, which often denied credit to new entrepreneurs like himself, Dhirubhai created a network of small investors, giving any ordinary person the opportunity to invest in his company, Reliance. This decision not only secured the necessary resources, but also democratized access to capital, something that was a radical innovation at the time. He banked on popular trust and the strength of his project, which was crucial to its initial growth. 3. Distrust and skepticism. Dhirubhai also faced distrust and skepticism from many sectors of society and from business people at the time. The business model he was creating was unconventional. He wasn't just selling fabrics or products, he was creating a new kind of company, an integrative enterprise where he controlled not only distribution, but also production. Many considered his approach bold and, in many cases, impossible. He was frequently discredited by the leading businessmen of the time, who saw his approach as a threat to the status quo. The idea of going public on the stock exchange, for example, was a decision that challenged the norm and was met with resistance. However, Dhirubhai was undeterred and pursued his journey with unwavering determination. 4. Overcoming political and industrial obstacles. In addition to bureaucracy and corporate skepticism, Dhirubhai also faced political challenges. During the years he built his company, India's political environment was volatile, with frequently changing industrial policies and governments that often favored large, established corporations over new entrepreneurs. Dhirubhai often found himself battling powerful business and political interests seeking to stifle his growth, using the country's laws to hamper his expansion. However, Dhirubhai knew how to navigate this landscape with cunning. He used his adaptability and resilience, overcoming difficulties with a diversification strategy and investing in sectors such as oil, refineries, and telecommunications, creating a network of interconnected, mutually supportive companies. 5. The vision to create something great. Even with all these challenges, Dhirubhai never lost sight of his original vision to create something great. He didn't just want to build a profitable company. He wanted to transform the Indian market and create a global brand. He had a long-term strategic vision that went beyond momentary difficulties. For him, the key to success lay in controlling the entire production chain, from raw materials to the final product, creating an integrated business network. Reliance Industries, which began as a small textile company, quickly expanded to diversify its business, becoming a powerhouse across multiple sectors. Dhirubhai had a keen intuition about which sectors were poised for growth in India, and he invested aggressively and visionarily. Throughout his journey, he distanced himself from a traditional business model, embracing the philosophy that there are no limits to what can be achieved if you are bold and strategic enough. He always believed that the impossible did not exist, and his ability to overcome obstacles, to see opportunities where others saw limitations, was what made his vision become a grand reality. In 1966, Dhirubhai Ambani took the first major step toward creating an empire. Reliance Industries was founded with an initial focus on textiles, marking the beginning of a journey that would later lead him to transform not only the textile sector, but the entire Indian economy. But what appeared to be just a new textile company was actually the beginning of a vast empire that would change India's industrial landscape. The motivation behind the foundation before founding Reliance. Dhirubhai had already accumulated significant experience in the textile trade. He had started as a fabric merchant and, over the years, understood the market needs and the growth potential of the textile industry in India. He had already begun to sense that Indian industry needed a change, a new kind of company that was more dynamic, more efficient, and more future-oriented. At the time, the Indian textile industry was highly fragmented, with many small entrepreneurs struggling to compete in a saturated market. Dhirubhai Ambani wanted to create a company that was different, one that not only produced fabrics, but also controlled the entire manufacturing process, from raw materials to distribution. He wanted to vertically integrate his company to ensure complete control over quality, costs, and production. The first big step, the founding of Reliance. Dhirubhai founded Reliance Commercial Corporation in 1966, which later became Reliance Industries. The name Reliance was chosen with the idea that his business would be based on reliability, quality, and on-time delivery, something he wanted to be the hallmark of his brand. He started the venture with a small textile and yarn factory in a market that, despite having high demand, lacked innovation and quality control. Reliance Industries' initial focus was textiles, manufacturing high-quality yarns and fabrics that met the needs of a modernizing India. Dhirubhai understood that to compete effectively in this sector, his company needed direct access to the supply chain, not rely on intermediaries, as many other textile merchants did. Challenges in the sector and the innovative business model. Despite being a promising industry, the textile sector in India also faced significant challenges, such as unfair competition, excessive bureaucracy, and a lack of resources for small entrepreneurs. Post-independence, India was beginning to industrialize, but it still had a rigid economic system where the government controlled many aspects of production and trade, hindering the expansion of new businesses. Dhirubhai, however, was determined to overcome these obstacles and adopt an innovative business model. While other textile entrepreneurs focused on small production runs and a single aspect of the process, he decided to integrate production, creating a vertical supply chain where Reliance would control every step, from yarn manufacturing to fabric production. This approach added value at every stage of the process, reducing costs and increasing efficiency. The differentiation strategy, quality and efficiency. One of the keys to Reliance's early success was Dhirubhai's obsession with quality. He wasn't willing to compete solely on price. He wanted to differentiate his products through quality and design. His factory produced high-quality fabrics, which quickly earned Reliance a strong reputation in the market. Dhirubhai also focused on reducing costs and increasing productivity, which gave him a significant competitive advantage. Production efficiency, combined with the ability to offer high-quality products at affordable prices, helped Reliance capture a significant market share. Reliance didn't limit itself to the domestic market either, and early on, it had the vision to expand into international markets, capitalizing on the growing demand for quality textiles from India. The impact of Reliance's founding. In its early years, Reliance Industries was a small company, but it began to gain prominence thanks to Dhirubhai's focus on vertical integration and superior product quality. Over time, Reliance expanded its operations to include new sectors such as oil tankers and refineries. But the textile business model was the foundation on which the company began to grow. This foundation was a fundamental step in building an industrial empire. Dhirubhai's strategic vision for controlling the supply chain, coupled with his obsession with quality, enabled him to create a strong and resilient company that would later expand into other industries, including energy, telecommunications, and petrochemicals. The first great victory, the expansion of Reliance. The founding of Reliance Industries was the first milestone on a successful journey. Dhirubhai Ambani not only created a successful textile company, but also laid the foundations for an innovative business model that, in the years to come, would allow Reliance to expand into other industries and become an international conglomerate. He had taken the first step toward creating something great, and Reliance would be a reflection of his vision and determination. When Dhirubhai Ambani founded Reliance Industries in 1966, one of his most strategic decisions was to control the entire supply chain. This approach was unusual at the time, especially in a country with a rigid industrial system and a predominantly agricultural economy, where many companies relied on intermediaries and external suppliers. Dhirubhai, however, was determined to create a different business model, one that departed from traditional practices and offered efficiency, control, and superior quality. The concept of total control, the idea of total control over the supply chain, was an innovative principle that Dhirubhai embraced from the outset. Instead of relying on external suppliers for raw materials and intermediate products, he wanted to own all elements of production within Reliance. This meant controlling every stage of production, from raw material extraction to final product distribution. This philosophy of vertical control was what separated Reliance from many other Indian companies, which still followed fragmented models and relied on a network of suppliers to supply their business. Dhirubhai believed that by controlling the entire supply chain, he could ensure higher quality, reduce costs, and increase efficiency, giving Reliance a competitive advantage over its competitors. Vertical integration as a pillar of growth. Vertical integration is a concept where a company controls all stages of a product's production chain, from raw material extraction to final distribution. For Dhirubhai, Reliance Industries should be self-sufficient at all stages, which would not only help control costs, but also maintain quality standards at every level of the process. This model allowed Reliance to expand rapidly without relying on intermediaries, and was crucial to the company's success. For example, when Dhirubhai expanded into the textile industry, he not only manufactured fabrics, but also controlled yarn production, chemical refining, and distribution of the fabrics nationwide. This allowed Reliance to offer high-quality products at affordable prices, while its competitors were limited by dependence on external suppliers and a lack of control over production costs. Economies of scale and cost reduction. One of the major advantages of this supply chain control model was the ability to reduce costs and increase efficiency. By producing most of the necessary raw materials and components in-house, Reliance eliminated intermediaries and reduced excessive profit margins that could be accrued during the outsourcing process. This gave the company a significant competitive advantage, as it could offer high-quality products at lower prices than its competitors, without sacrificing profit margins. Scale was also a key factor. Because Reliance controlled several parts of the production process, it could scale up production without worrying about raw material shortages or price fluctuations from external suppliers. This control over mass production not only made it more competitive in the domestic market, but also prepared it for international expansion, where production reliability was crucial, adapting to local and global challenges in addition to cost reduction. Vertical integration allowed Reliance to be more adaptable to market changes. During the early years of its operations, India was experiencing a series of economic and political challenges, including trade restrictions, resource shortages, and government control of the economy. Companies that relied on external suppliers often faced delays, increased costs, and a lack of control over production. However, Reliance, by controlling its supply chain, overcame these challenges more easily. It had direct access to the necessary resources and could adjust its production quickly and efficiently when challenges arose, such as raw material shortages or regulatory changes. Dhirubhai had the flexibility to make quick decisions without having to wait for third parties. This absolute control not only helped it thrive domestically, but also expand into international markets, especially at a time when the global economy was becoming increasingly interconnected. Reliance began exporting its products and establishing itself as a trusted quality brand abroad, a position it could only achieve thanks to its ability to control every aspect of its production and operations. Continuous innovation and sector expansion. The supply chain control business model wasn't limited to the textile industry. As Reliance expanded into new sectors such as oil, refineries, telecommunications, and petrochemicals, vertical integration remained a central pillar. Each new sector was treated the same way as the textile industry. Dhirubhai sought absolute control over every aspect of the process, from oil extraction to fuel distribution. The oil refinery built by Reliance, for example, was entirely controlled by the company, from extraction to distribution of refined products. This control over resources and processes allowed Reliance to maximize efficiency, reduce costs, and ensure higher profit margins. Since its founding in 1966, Reliance Industries has grown from a small textile company to become one of the largest industrial conglomerates in India and the world. Dhirubhai Ambani's initial focus was to create a vertically integrated company, but his vision for Reliance always extended far beyond the textile sector. Reliance's strategic expansion spanned several industries, including oil, telecommunications, petrochemicals, and later technology and renewable energy. Let's explore how this phenomenal expansion was achieved. 1. Diversification. For the petrochemical sector, Dhirubhai's first major expansion was into the petrochemical sector, an area where he saw enormous growth potential given the growing global demand for petroleum-based products. After establishing Reliance as a powerhouse in the textile sector, he began exploring the oil and gas markets, realizing the need for diversification to ensure the company's stability and continued growth. In 1985, Reliance broke ground on its first large-scale petrochemical plant in Patalganga, a milestone in the company's history. Reliance Petrochemicals Ltd. began producing polymers, plastics, and other petroleum derivatives, essential products, for various industries, such as automotive, pharmaceutical, and packaging. The expansion into the petrochemical sector was a brilliant strategic decision, placing Reliance in a high-margin sector with growing demand, both domestically and internationally. The ability to vertically integrate oil production and refining processes was a competitive advantage that helped Reliance dominate this sector in India and become a global benchmark. 2. Entry into the energy sector. Oil refineries. Reliance's expansion continued on a massive scale with the construction of oil refineries. In 1999, Reliance inaugurated its Jamnagar refinery, the largest in the world in terms of processing capacity. At the time, with an investment of over $6 billion US, this refinery represented not only an expansion in the oil sector, but also a technological and industrial leap that would cement Reliance as one of the world's largest energy groups. The Jamnagar refinery was a true milestone in Reliance's history, as the company not only began producing petroleum products on a large scale, but also became self-sufficient in several critical areas. The refinery enabled Reliance to better control costs, improve efficiency, and increase profit margins while meeting the growing energy demand at home and in global markets. 3. The telecommunications revolution. Reliance Communications. In the 1990s, Dhirubhai Ambani began identifying the potential of telecommunications as a strategic sector. For Reliance's expansion, India was preparing for a digital revolution, and Dhirubhai was determined to place Reliance at the center of this transformation. In 2002, after his death, his son, Mukesh Ambani, led Reliance's expansion into the telecommunications sector. Reliance Communications was founded with the goal of making mobile communications more accessible to millions of Indians. The company revolutionized the telecommunications market by offering affordable services, something India had never experienced on a large scale. The logic of democratizing communications reflected Dhirubhai Ambani's vision, which included transforming traditional and saturated markets, creating new opportunities for millions of consumers. The expansion of telecommunications represented another significant step for Reliance, allowing it to connect with all segments of society, especially India's emerging middle class. For the technology and innovation sector, going digital. Dhirubhai Ambani always had a clear vision that innovation and future-proofing were key to his company's growth. Although he didn't live to see it happen, Reliance entered the technology sector with a vengeance shortly after his death in the 2000s. Dhirubhai's son, Mukesh Ambani, was responsible for creating one of India's largest fiber optic networks and launching Reliance Jio, a digital services platform that quickly became the country's largest mobile telecommunications network. The digital revolution brought about by Reliance Jio not only changed the way Indians connect, but also led Reliance to reinvent itself as a technology company. Jio made history by initially offering free 4G internet, a bold move that democratized internet access for millions of Indians, including those in rural areas who previously lacked access to technology. This move transformed India into one of the world's most dynamic digital economies. 5. Global expansion. Reliance becomes a global name with growth in telecommunications, petrochemicals, energy, and technology. Reliance Industries became one of the largest global corporations. The company not only dominated the Indian market, but also had a significant presence in international markets, particularly in the energy and petrochemical sectors. Global expansion was not just a matter of economic growth, but also of establishing Reliance's presence on the global stage. Reliance Energy, Reliance Petroleum, and Reliance Communications began to establish themselves as internationally recognized brands, with operations in various parts of the world. 6. The sustainability vision, the future of Reliance. In recent years, Reliance has begun taking steps toward a sustainable future, investing in renewable energy and greener business practices. The company has begun exploring clean energy sources, seeking to position itself as a leader in sustainable solutions. This reflects the vision of the future and innovation that Dhirubhai Ambani has always championed, a businessman focused not only on immediate profit, but also on legacy and social responsibility. The story of Reliance Industries begins with Dhirubhai Ambani's vision to create an innovative, vertically integrated company with control over the entire production chain. The company's initial focus was on the textile sector, but over the years, it expanded aggressively and strategically to become a diversified conglomerate, now operating in sectors such as energy, petrochemicals, telecommunications, and technology. This expansion reflects not only Dhirubhai's versatility as an entrepreneur, but also his ability to anticipate trends and explore new markets with a futuristic vision. 1. The foundation and initial focus, the textile industry. In 1966, Dhirubhai Ambani founded Reliance Commercial Corporation, later known as Reliance Industries. With a primary focus on textile production, India was beginning to emerge from a long period of colonialism and resource scarcity, and the textile industry was one of the most important for the Indian economy at the time. Most Indian entrepreneurs operated in a fragmented market, with small companies lacking control over the supply chain. Dhirubhai had a clear vision. He wanted to not just sell fabrics, but also control the production process. He knew that to succeed in such a competitive market, the company needed to be able to offer superior quality at more affordable prices, while also controlling production costs. Thus, Reliance began manufacturing its own yarns and fabrics, creating a vertically integrated business model where the company controlled everything from raw materials to final distribution. This gave Reliance a significant advantage, allowing it to compete effectively with other producers and ensure the quality and consistency of its products. Reliance quickly established itself in the textile market thanks to its efficient processes, quality control, and low-cost strategy. This initial phase was crucial for establishing the brand and creating a solid operational base. But Dhirubhai knew the company needed more to grow and establish itself as a global powerhouse. 2. Diversification into the petrochemical sector, expansion beyond textiles. After his success in the textile sector, Dhirubhai began to realize that, to ensure Reliance's continued growth, the company needed to diversify its operations. It was at this point that he took the first significant step toward diversification, entering the petrochemical sector. In the 1980s, Dhirubhai Ambani realized that India was rapidly industrializing and that there was a growing demand for petrochemicals such as plastics, polyethylene, and other petroleum derivatives, which would be crucial for a range of sectors, including automotive, packaging, electronics, and agriculture. With his strategic vision, Dhirubhai founded Reliance Petrochemicals. In 1985, the company began construction of one of India's largest polymer and plastics plants in Padalganga. By controlling the production of petrochemical raw materials, Reliance not only expanded its customer base in the industrial sector, but also secured a competitive advantage by reducing costs and ensuring production efficiency. This diversification into the petrochemical sector allowed Reliance to increase its profit margins and establish a leading position in a growing market. The company quickly became one of India's largest petrochemical producers, and this expansion was crucial to building an industrial empire. 3. The advancement for the energy sector, oil refineries, and energy. After consolidating his position in the textile and petrochemical sectors, Dhirubhai realized that energy would be Reliance's next strategic expansion sector. As India industrialized, it needed energy infrastructure to sustain its growth. It was then that he decided to enter the energy sector, starting with the construction of oil refineries. In 1999, Reliance inaugurated its Jamnagar refinery, which became the world's largest oil refinery in terms of processing capacity. The Jamnagar refinery marked a significant milestone in Reliance's trajectory, as the company not only increased petroleum product production, but also secured complete control over the energy supply chain. The success of this refinery cemented Reliance's position as a powerhouse in the energy sector and enabled the company to become self-sufficient in its energy production, reducing dependence on external suppliers and increasing efficiency and profitability. This entry into the energy sector was crucial to building the conglomerate that Reliance would become in the following decades. For telecommunications, the digital revolution with Reliance Communications in the 2000s. The telecommunications sector emerged as Reliance's next field of expansion. Dhirubhai Ambani, though now deceased, saw his sons, especially Mukesh Ambani, lead the company into the telecommunications sector. Reliance began investing heavily in telecommunications infrastructure, and in 2002, Reliance launched Reliance Communications, the digital revolution that Reliance Communications brought to the country cannot be underestimated. By offering affordable mobile phone services, the company democratized access to communications in the country, enabling millions of Indians to access mobile phones and the internet. This innovation in the telecommunications sector was a milestone in Reliance's expansion and solidified the company as a global force in technology and innovation. 5. Technological sectors and sustainability. A vision of the future. In recent years, Reliance has begun investing in technology and renewable energy with a forward-looking vision. The company has positioned itself as a leader in digital solutions, investing in the development of data infrastructure and digital services, and engaging in sustainable business practices. The expansion into the renewable energy and clean technology market reflects the company's long-term vision, which seeks to adapt to global changes and become a leader in sustainable and innovative solutions. In 1977, Dhirubhai Ambani made a radical and bold decision that, at first glance, seemed risky and, to many, even incomprehensible. He decided to list Reliance on the Bombay Stock Exchange, allowing the public to invest in the company. This move would become a landmark not only for Reliance but for the Indian financial market as a whole. At that time, India was still adapting to its new post-independence landscape, and the concept of widely accessible stock markets was far from the norm. The stock market and stock market system was closed and limited, with most large companies operating under a closed family model, where outside investors were rare. The idea of taking a company public was revolutionary, especially in a more conservative and controlled market. Defying convention, Dhirubhai's vision for Dhirubhai Ambani listing Reliance on the Bombay Stock Exchange was more than a capital-raising strategy. It was a manifestation of his revolutionary vision for the Indian market. He believed that financial transparency and access to the stock market were crucial to developing a solid investor base and ensuring Reliance's continued growth. Furthermore, he wanted Reliance to be more than a family-owned or privately owned company. He wanted it to be a company for everyone, where the public could not only be consumers, but also be part of the company's success. Sharing in the fruits of economic growth, Dhirubhai had an incredible intuition about financial markets, and his idea was to allow ordinary individuals from small investors to the wealthiest to become owners of a piece of the Reliance empire. This move would not only help raise the funds needed to further expand the company, but it would also create a connection with the population and democratize access to the financial market, overcoming challenges, initial distrust, and bureaucracy. In 1977, the Indian economy was still marked by heavy state regulation, and the financial markets were far from accessible to the general public. The Bombay Stock Exchange, although one of the oldest in Asia, was small and limited. Many traditional business owners were wary of opening up to outside investors, and there was widespread distrust of transparency and corporate governance. Furthermore, banks and institutional investors were hesitant to back such a bold move by Dhirubhai, especially when he came from a humble background, lacking the traditional connections or name to guarantee the success of such a venture. Bureaucracy was also a significant obstacle, as the system of issuing shares and controlling the stock exchange was complex and restrictive. However, Dhirubhai was undeterred. He used his skill in navigating administrative and financial difficulties to build a network of investors who believed in his potential. He knew that direct communication with his investors and building a solid capital base were crucial to Reliance's future growth. The impact of going public, a revolution in the market in 1977. When Reliance listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange, it was a revolution for the Indian stock market. Dhirubhai's decision not only brought capital to the company, but also changed the way business was done in India. In doing so, he popularized the concept of stock investing in the country, allowing millions of Indians to become investors, something that until then had been unthinkable for the majority of the population. By going public, Dhirubhai gained public trust. He convinced thousands of people to believe in the idea of becoming Reliance shareholders, creating a solid base of investors, including ordinary people who could now participate directly in the market economy. He made Reliance a company for everyone, further strengthening his empire by creating an emotional connection between the company and its citizens. The growth strategy, financing for expansion. Reliance's IPO wasn't just a symbolic move, it was a crucial financial strategy for the company's expansion. The proceeds from the IPO were crucial to Reliance's expansion projects, such as the construction of oil refineries, petrochemical plants, and new infrastructure. Without this capital, Reliance would likely have faced serious challenges in financing its growth. The decision to go public also gave Reliance enormous public visibility, not only in the Indian market, but also internationally. The company began to attract global attention, and foreign investors began to take an interest in a burgeoning empire that was now open to foreign investment. Exponential expansion, the model of sustained growth from 1977 onward. Reliance began to grow exponentially. The capital raised from the IPO helped the company expand into new sectors, such as petrochemicals, energy, and telecommunications. The business model Dhirubhai had created, based on complete control of the supply chain, was now strengthened by a steady flow of resources that enabled Reliance to expand its operations, innovate, and increase its ability to compete in the global market. Reliance Industries' trajectory under Dhirubhai Ambani's leadership was marked by strategic diversification beyond the textile sector, its initial area of operation. This diversification was essential in transforming Reliance from a simple textile manufacturer into a multifaceted, global industrial conglomerate. Dhirubhai's decision to expand Reliance into petrochemicals, oil refining, and telecommunications not only provided the company with a solid growth foundation, but also positioned it as a global leader in several key markets. 1. Diversification into petrochemicals, creating value from oil in the 1980s. After consolidating his position in the textile sector, Dhirubhai Ambani realized that the petrochemical industry represented significant growth potential. India was undergoing rapid industrialization, and demand for petroleum-based products such as plastics, polyethylene, and other polymers was rising. However, For Reliance to thrive in a competitive market, it needed to expand beyond its textile business model and enter new sectors with higher margins and growing demand. Thus, in 1985, Reliance began its petrochemical journey with the creation of Reliance Petrochemicals. The first production plant was established in Patalganga near Mumbai and soon became one of the largest polymer and plastics factories in India. Reliance produced essential petrochemicals for a variety of industries, including packaging, automotive, consumer goods, and more. The expansion into the petrochemical industry was crucial because it allowed Reliance to control another stage of the production chain, leveraging the synergies between the different sectors it was building. Dhirubhai knew that the long-term value of the petrochemical industry lay not only in producing petroleum products, but in ensuring control over the entire process, from oil extraction to the transformation of that oil into petrochemicals that would be used in countless industries. With the success of Reliance Petrochemicals, Reliance came to be seen as an innovative and forward-thinking company, managing to reduce production costs and improve efficiency, while increasing its ability to compete with large global corporations. To expansion into the oil refining sector, the Jamnagar refinery, with its position in the petrochemical sector firmly established, Dhirubhai Ambani quickly identified the next major step for Reliance: the construction of an oil refinery. During the 1990s, India was experiencing significant industrial expansion, and the need for oil refineries to supply the growing domestic and international markets for fuels and petroleum products was evident. In 1999, Reliance inaugurated its Jamnagar refinery, which would become the world's largest oil refinery in terms of processing capacity. This mega project was one of Dhirubhai's biggest bets, with an investment of over $6 billion United States dollars. But it was also a brilliant strategic move, as it gave Reliance complete control over the production of fuel and derivatives, creating a cycle of self-sufficiency. The Jamnagar refinery enabled Reliance to produce a wide variety of petroleum products, such as gasoline, diesel, kerosene, and other fuels, meeting growing demand both domestically and internationally. It also gave the company a significant competitive advantage, as Reliance now controlled not only petrochemical production, but also petroleum refining, ensuring higher margins and the ability to serve a wider market. Furthermore, the refinery also contributed to cost reductions, as Reliance no longer relied on external refineries for fuel supplies. The Jamnagar refinery has cemented Reliance's position as one of the largest global players in the energy and oil refining sector, providing one of the company's main sources of profit and securing a strategic position in the global oil market. 3. Entering the telecom sector. The connectivity revolution with Reliance Communications. Reliance's last major expansion area was telecommunications. During the 1990s, India's telecommunications market was undergoing liberalization, and Dhirubhai Ambani saw a golden opportunity to revolutionize how Indians connected. He knew the mobile phone and internet market was about to explode, and Reliance could challenge the telecom giants by creating an affordable and innovative offering for the Indian middle class. In 2002, Reliance launched Reliance Communications, which quickly became a dominant force in India's telecommunications sector. The company's mission was simple: to offer high-quality mobile phone and internet services at affordable prices to as many people as possible. This move was revolutionary, as before Reliance Communications' arrival, telecommunications prices in the country were high and unaffordable for many. An aggressive pricing strategy combined with technological innovation allowed Reliance to quickly dominate the market, adding millions of new subscribers every month. Furthermore, the digital revolution brought by Reliance helped popularize cell phone use and 3G and 4G internet in the country, something that previously seemed out of reach for most Indians. Reliance Communications has not only transformed digital connectivity in the country, but has also placed Reliance at the forefront of the global telecommunications industry, enabling the company to expand its influence into international markets and cement its position as an industry leader. For synergy and growth, the power of diversification. Reliance's diversification drive wasn't simply a matter of expanding into new sectors. It was a strategy of synergy, where each new sector developed by the company complemented the others, creating a network of interconnected, mutually supportive operations. For example, the petrochemicals produced by Reliance at its Padalganga plant were used in various industries, including telecommunications, such as the production of cables and other essential components for telecommunications. Infrastructure. The Jamnagar refinery also supplied fuel for vehicles and power generation, vital for telecommunications operations and other industries. Diversification helped Reliance become less vulnerable to market fluctuations and build a robust portfolio of businesses that would sustain it over the following decades. The strategy of integrated expansion and focus on high-margin sectors put Reliance on track to become one of the largest global corporations, with a significant presence in both emerging and developed markets. The success of Dhirubhai Ambani and Reliance Industries was no accident. It was the result of brilliant strategic vision combined with impeccable execution, with a focus on absolute control over the company's operations. These two qualities, long-term vision and complete control of operations, were the foundations that allowed Reliance to grow not only from a small textile company, but into one of the world's largest industrial conglomerates. Let's explore how these two characteristics were fundamental to Dhirubhai Ambani's enduring success. 1. Long-term vision, thinking ahead from the beginning. Dhirubhai Ambani stood out for his long-term vision. While most entrepreneurs of the time focused on short-term results, Dhirubhai always thought about Reliance's future. He wanted to create not just a profitable company, but a sustainable industrial empire capable of adapting to market changes, growing over the decades, and constantly innovating. One of the greatest strengths of Dhirubhai's long-term vision was his ability to anticipate trends and identify opportunities before his competitors. He didn't limit himself to current market needs. He considered the changes that were coming and strategically positioned himself to capitalize on them. This kind of thinking was crucial, especially in a country like India, where industrialization was just beginning and the opportunities for innovative companies were immense. Dhirubhai had the ability to see beyond the limitations of the present and focused on how to turn challenges into opportunities. For example, while the Indian market was still in the early stages of industrialization and modernization, he knew that expanding into sectors such as petrochemicals, energy, and telecommunications would be crucial to Reliance's future. Rather than simply expanding within the textile sector, he envisioned a diversified conglomerate that could sustain the company's long-term growth, with diverse revenue streams and growth opportunities. 2. Total control of operations. The vertical integration strategy, another crucial secret to Dhirubhai's success, was his absolute control over Reliance's operations. From the outset, he adopted a vertical integration model, which meant that Reliance controlled every step of the production chain, from raw materials to final product distribution. This total control allowed Reliance not only to reduce costs and increase efficiency, but also to ensure that product quality was consistent and met the required high standards. The strategy of total operational control was not limited to a single area. It extended to all of the company's operations. Reliance no longer relied on external suppliers for its raw materials, giving the company the autonomy it needed to keep costs under control and the ability to innovate without relying on third parties. A clear example of how total control translated into success was Dhirubhai's move into the petrochemical and oil refining sectors. Rather than contenting himself with simply trading petroleum products, he decided to build his own refineries, ensuring Reliance was resource self-sufficient. The Jamnagar refinery, inaugurated in 1999, was a milestone in this strategy, one of the largest oil refineries in the world, which not only ensured the production of fuels and other derivatives, but also allowed Reliance to control every aspect of the energy value chain. Furthermore, full control over operations also allowed Reliance great flexibility and agility in its strategic decisions. When the market demanded rapid changes or when new opportunities rose, Reliance could adjust its operations quickly. without relying on external suppliers or intermediaries. This adaptability was crucial to ensuring the company's continued growth, especially during times of economic uncertainty and political change. 3. The ability to innovate and take calculated risks. A long-term vision and complete control over operations also allowed Reliance to be an innovative company. Dhirubhai Ambani had a unique approach to innovation. He didn't just react to market changes, he anticipated them. He knew that to stay ahead, Reliance would need to constantly evolve, investing in new technologies and improving its production processes. For example, in the telecommunications sector, Reliance was one of India's pioneers in adopting new technologies. In 2002, Reliance Communications was launched and quickly became one of the country's largest mobile and internet providers. Dhirubhai's decision to enter this market, even before India began to digitally modernize, demonstrated his ability to anticipate trends and change the way people connected. Furthermore, Dhirubhai possessed a calculated risk-taking ability. He wasn't afraid to invest in large projects like the Jamnagar refinery or petrochemical projects, even when these investments involved large amounts of capital and high risk. He knew these risks would pay off in the long run. And this kind of strategic thinking is what allowed Reliance to grow sustainably over the decades. For the culture of leadership and decentralization, while Dhirubhai exercised complete control over operations, he also understood the importance of delegating responsibilities and creating a decentralized leadership culture within Reliance. He trusted his leaders and his employees, creating an environment where innovation and quick decision-making were encouraged. Dhirubhai believed that, to succeed, the company needed talented and motivated people capable of making local decisions and adapting quickly to change. This helped create a dynamic corporate culture where flexibility and innovation were core values. His ability to balance control with autonomy was a cornerstone of Reliance's success, enabling the company to maintain efficient management while fostering growth and innovation. Dhirubhai Ambani was more than a successful businessman. He was a visionary and a pioneer who transformed Indian business with his bold philosophy, focused on risk-taking, innovation, and a unique approach to creating opportunities from challenges. His vision revolutionized the way business was done in India and over time, in other parts of the world. His business philosophy still serves as a benchmark for entrepreneurs and business leaders, seeking to transform big dreams into extraordinary realities. Business, creating value and solving problems. Dhirubhai Ambani had a clear philosophy about what it meant to do business. For him, business wasn't just about profit, but about creating value and solving problems. He believed that the purpose of a company wasn't simply to generate income or dividends, but more importantly, to transform people's lives and improve society. His focus was on understanding market needs and creating products and solutions that met those needs more efficiently, rather than simply following the industry norm. Dhirubhai sought to constantly innovate and find ways to improve people's lives, whether by offering high-quality products at affordable prices or creating investment opportunities for the general public. Reliance's IPO in 1977 was a perfect example of this philosophy. He wanted anyone, regardless of their background, to have the chance to invest and be part of the company's success. This value-centric approach is what made Reliance not just an industrial giant, but a company deeply connected to its people and its economy. Dhirubhai had a holistic business vision, where financial success went hand in hand with positive social impact. Risk, the need to be bold. Dhirubhai Ambani was not afraid to take risks. In fact, he saw risk as an opportunity and believed that only the bold could achieve true success. From the beginning of his business career, Dhirubhai made bold decisions that were seen as risky by many, but which over time proved to be fundamental to Reliance's growth. His philosophy on risk can be summed up by his famous quote, "If you don't risk, you won't gain." Dhirubhai believed that to achieve something great, one must be willing to step outside one's comfort zone and face uncertainty with courage. He refused to be limited by the fear of failure and knew that the greatest successes often come from taking the greatest risks. This kind of thinking revolutionized the way the Indian private sector viewed risk. Before Dhirubhai, many companies in India were conservative and averse to taking big bets, largely due to the rigid regulatory system. However, Dhirubhai, by contrast, not only embraced risk, but also structured his company to thrive within this bold mindset. His ability to invest massively in sectors like petrochemicals, oil refineries, and telecommunications at a time of political and economic uncertainty demonstrated his deep belief that calculated risk is an essential part of business growth. Innovation, turning challenges into opportunities. Innovation has always been a fundamental pillar of Dhirubhai Ambani's philosophy. He didn't see innovation as something that came only from cutting-edge technologies, but rather as the ability to find creative solutions to common problems. For Dhirubhai, innovation was about finding new and efficient ways of doing business, whether by reducing costs, improving processes, or adapting to market changes. A clear example of this philosophy was Dhirubhai's decision to vertically integrate Reliance's production, starting with the textile sector. Instead of relying on intermediaries or external suppliers for raw materials, he decided to control the entire process, from yarn and fabric production to final distribution. This not only improved the company's efficiency, but also allowed Reliance to offer quality products at lower prices. Vertical integration was a strategic innovation that helped Reliance control its production chain, ensuring greater control over costs and quality. Another notable example of innovation was Dhirubhai's move to take Reliance public on the Bombay Stock Exchange in 1977. At that time, the Indian economy was restricted and conservative, and few companies went public to the general public. However, Dhirubhai wanted to democratize access to the financial market and allow any ordinary person to invest in Reliance, creating a loyal investor base and generating the resources necessary for the company's expansion. Furthermore, Dhirubhai's entry into the telecommunications sector through Reliance Communications was a disruptive innovation that transformed the Indian mobile phone market. He anticipated the explosive growth in demand for mobile phone services and achieved the impossible by offering quality mobile services at affordable prices, changing the way Indians connected and helping expand digital connectivity in the country. Global vision, thinking long-term and beyond borders. Dhirubhai's global vision was also a central component of his innovation philosophy. He always thought beyond India's borders and sought to expand Reliance's operations into global markets, capitalizing on globalization and the growing energy and technology markets. He knew that international success was essential for Reliance to become a truly global company, and his investments in telecommunications infrastructure and oil refineries were not just to meet local demand, but also to serve international markets. What would you do if, as you tried to build an empire, the political and economic system was stacked against you? What would happen if the environment around you was filled with obstacles, unforgiving rules, and unexpected challenges? For Dhirubhai Ambani, this was the price of greatness. At the heart of his journey, he faced a terrain of regulatory and bureaucratic challenges that would have stopped any other entrepreneur, but he never gave up. And the question is, how did he overcome it all? Today, Ambani's legacy is undeniable. Reliance remains a pillar of the Indian economy, and its influence can be seen across all areas of the country's private sector. He not only transformed the business world, but also helped redefine the concept of opportunity in a country that was modernizing and opening up to the world. Dhirubhai Ambani didn't just dream big, he made India dream. Translated into success was Dhirubhai's move into the petrochemical and oil refining sectors. Rather than contenting himself with simply trading petroleum products, he decided to build his own refineries, ensuring Reliance was resource self-sufficient. The Jamnagar refinery, inaugurated in 1999, was a milestone in this strategy, one of the largest oil refineries in the world, which not only ensured the production of fuels and other derivatives, but also allowed Reliance to control every aspect of the energy value chain. Furthermore, full control over operations also allowed Reliance great flexibility and agility in its strategic decisions. When the market demanded rapid changes or when new opportunities rose, Reliance could adjust its operations quickly, without relying on external suppliers or intermediaries. This adaptability was crucial to ensuring the company's continued growth, especially during times of economic uncertainty and political change. 3. The ability to innovate and take calculated risks. A long-term vision and complete control over operations also allowed Reliance to be an innovative company. Dhirubhai Ambani had a unique approach to innovation. He didn't just react to market changes, he anticipated them. He knew that to stay ahead, Reliance would need to constantly evolve, investing in new technologies and improving its production processes. For example, in the telecommunications sector, Reliance was one of India's pioneers in adopting new technologies. In 2002, Reliance Communications was launched and quickly became one of the country's largest mobile and internet providers. Dhirubhai's decision to enter this market, even before India began to digitally modernize, demonstrated his ability to anticipate trends and change the way people connected. Furthermore, Dhirubhai possessed a calculated risk-taking ability. He wasn't afraid to invest in large projects like the Jamnagar refinery or petrochemical projects. Even when these investments involved large amounts of capital and high risk, he knew these risks would pay off in the long run. And this kind of strategic thinking is what allowed Reliance to grow sustainably over the decades. 4. The culture of leadership and decentralization. While Dhirubhai exercised complete control over operations, he also understood the importance of delegating responsibilities and creating a decentralized leadership culture within Reliance. He trusted his leaders and his employees, creating an environment where innovation and quick decision-making were encouraged. Dhirubhai believed that, to succeed, the company needed talented and motivated people capable of making local decisions and adapting quickly to change. This helped create a dynamic corporate culture where flexibility and innovation were core values. His ability to balance control with autonomy was a cornerstone of Reliance's success, enabling the company to maintain efficient management while fostering growth and innovation. Dhirubhai Ambani was more than a successful businessman. He was a visionary and a pioneer who transformed Indian business with his bold philosophy, focused on risk-taking, innovation, and a unique approach to creating opportunities from challenges. His vision revolutionized the way business was done in India and over time, in other parts of the world. His business philosophy still serves as a benchmark for entrepreneurs and business leaders seeking to transform big dreams into extraordinary realities. Business, creating value and solving problems. Dhirubhai Ambani had a clear philosophy about what it meant to do business. For him, business wasn't just about profit, but about creating value and solving problems. He believed that the purpose of a company wasn't simply to generate income or dividends, but more importantly, to transform people's lives and improve society. His focus was on understanding market needs and creating products and solutions that met those needs more efficiently, rather than simply following the industry norm. Dhirubhai sought to constantly innovate and find ways to improve people's lives, whether by offering high-quality products at affordable prices or creating investment opportunities for the general public. Reliance's IPO in 1977 was a perfect example of this philosophy. He wanted anyone, regardless of their background, to have the chance to invest and be part of the company's success. This value-centric approach is what made Reliance not just an industrial giant, but a company deeply connected to its people and its economy. Dhirubhai had a holistic business vision, where financial success went hand in hand with positive social impact. Risk, the need to be bold. Dhirubhai Ambani was not afraid to take risks. In fact, he saw risk as an opportunity and believed that only the bold could achieve true success. From the beginning of his business career, Dhirubhai made bold decisions that were seen as risky by many, but which over time proved to be fundamental to Reliance's growth. His philosophy on risk can be summed up by his famous quote, "If you don't risk, you won't gain." Dhirubhai believed that to achieve something great, one must be willing to step outside one's comfort zone and face uncertainty with courage. He refused to be limited by the fear of failure and knew that the greatest successes often come from taking the greatest risks. This kind of thinking revolutionized the way the Indian private sector viewed risk. Before Dhirubhai, many companies in India were conservative and averse to taking big bets, largely due to the rigid regulatory system. However, Dhirubhai, by contrast, not only embraced risk, but also structured his company to thrive within this bold mindset. His ability to invest massively in sectors like petrochemicals, oil refineries, and telecommunications at a time of political and economic uncertainty demonstrated his deep belief that calculated risk is an essential part of business growth. Innovation, turning challenges into opportunities. Innovation has always been a fundamental pillar of Dhirubhai Ambani's philosophy. He didn't see innovation as something that came only from cutting-edge technologies, but rather as the ability to find creative solutions to common problems. For Dhirubhai, innovation was about finding new and efficient ways of doing business, whether by reducing costs, improving processes, or adapting to market changes. A clear example of this philosophy was Dhirubhai's decision to vertically integrate Reliance's production, starting with the textile sector. Instead of relying on intermediaries or external suppliers for raw materials, he decided to control the entire process, from yarn and fabric production to final distribution. This not only improved the company's efficiency, but also allowed Reliance to offer quality products at lower prices. Vertical integration was a strategic innovation that helped Reliance control its production chain, ensuring greater control over costs and quality. Another notable example of innovation was Dhirubhai's move to take Reliance public on the Bombay Stock Exchange in 1977. At that time, the Indian economy was restricted and conservative, and few companies went public to the general public. However, Dhirubhai wanted to democratize access to the financial market and allow any ordinary person to invest in Reliance, creating a loyal investor base and generating the resources necessary for the company's expansion. Furthermore, Dhirubhai's entry into the telecommunications sector through Reliance Communications was a disruptive innovation that transformed the Indian mobile phone market. He anticipated the explosive growth in demand for mobile phone services and achieved the impossible by offering quality mobile services at affordable prices, changing the way Indians connected and helping expand digital connectivity in the country. Global vision, thinking long-term and beyond borders. Dhirubhai's global vision was also a central component of his innovation philosophy. He always thought beyond India's borders and sought to expand Reliance's operations into global markets, capitalizing on globalization and the growing energy and technology markets. He knew that international success was essential for Reliance to become a truly global company, and his investments in telecommunications infrastructure and oil refineries were not just to meet local demand, but also to serve international markets. What would you do if, as you tried to build an empire, the political and economic system was stacked against you? What would happen if the environment around you was filled with obstacles, unforgiving rules, and unexpected challenges? For Dhirubhai Ambani, this was the price of greatness. At the heart of his journey, he faced a terrain of regulatory and bureaucratic challenges that would have stopped any other entrepreneur, but he never gave up. And the question is, how did he overcome it all? Today, Ambani's legacy is undeniable. Reliance remains a pillar of the Indian economy, and its influence can be seen across all areas of the country's private sector. He not only transformed the business world, but also helped redefine the concept of opportunity in a country that was modernizing and opening up to the world. Dhirubhai Ambani didn't just dream big, he made India dream big.